The medbay lights snapped to crimson as the scanners detected human blood. "Severe wound," a medic shrieked. Cadets scattered around Marcus like he'd been disemboweled. Dr. Vrixor stormed in, eyes wide, mandibles flared. "Move. This requires full reconstruction." Marcus blinked, lifted his arm, and stared at the cut. "Doc, it's literally a cut." 3 assistants fainted. Vrixor read the scanner again, horrified. "He's losing red internal fluid at an alarming rate." "That's blood," Marcus said calmly. "It's supposed to do that." Vrixor gasped so hard, the heart monitor hiccuped. Marcus reached over, grabbed a needle, disinfectant, and thread. "Everyone relax. I'll fix it." The room fell silent as he began to stitch. And somewhere in the background, the surgical AI whispered, "Adaptive technique detected. Unknown threat. Classification." Kesari Station's Medical Sciences Wing hadn't experienced an emergency of this nature before. To be fair, it wasn't really an emergency, just a human with a bleeding arm, but the medbay didn't know that yet. Marcus Hale had been working his maintenance shift like usual, realigning the tension rotors inside one of the station's heat exchange cores. A slightly overzealous torque wrench had slipped, and a jagged stabilizer fin introduced itself to the inside of his forearm. The wound bled immediately, more than he'd expected, but nothing he hadn't dealt with before. He swore once, wiped it on his sleeve, and reported to medbay because protocol said to. He walked into the Medical Sciences Wing with the kind of grimace you'd expect from someone who stubbed their toe during a work call. By the time he passed the biofilter archway, the scanners had already pinged his vitals, detected blood loss, and triggered triage protocols designed for species with a quarter of his circulatory reserve. The instant alert wasn't subtle. Every alarm lit red. Doors retracted, surgical beds deployed, and automated carts loaded with regeneration, foam, and oxygenator masks swarmed the hallway. Marcus hadn't even sat down yet when 3 cadets pulled him toward an isolation slab. "Please lie down, you've suffered critical fluid loss." He looked down at his arm. The cut was maybe 10 centimeters long, a little deep, sure, but not gaping. The sleeve of his uniform was soaked, but the blood had mostly slowed to a weeping line. Still, the medbay looked ready to perform an exorcism. Dr. Vrixor entered at a sprint. As the lead trauma surgeon on Kesari Station, he had stabilized burst thoraxes, fused collapsed spiracles, and reversed a full-body metabolic cascade during a shuttle fire. None of that prepared him for a human calmly sitting upright while leaking what his scanner described as internally essential fluid. He didn't hesitate. "This requires full tissue reconstruction," he said with practiced urgency. "Tissue scaffolds now. Auto-suture drones prepped. Neural knitting arrays at the ready." Marcus raised a brow. "I'm sorry, what?" Dr. Vrixor was already reading vitals. "Your dermal membrane is compromised. Blood is escaping at an alarming rate. It's a cut. You've lost containment integrity." Marcus rolled his eyes. "Doc, this happens. The body's still running. See? Heart's beating, lungs are breathing, brain's braining." Cadet Trixel held up the bioscan tablet. "Sir, he is not exhibiting signs of neural fog. Could be adrenaline surge. Or delusion," Vrixor muttered. "He may be unaware of his impending collapse." "Not collapsing," Marcus said. "Just annoyed." "Sedate him, now," Vrixor ordered. Marcus flinched away as 2 cadets moved closer with injection wands. "Nope, no sedation. That's where I draw the line." "You must be unconscious," Vrixor said. "We need to excise the ruptured region for clean regrowth." Marcus stared. "You want to cut off the skin so it can grow back?" "Yes, it's the fastest method of dermal reset." "Why would you cut more?" he asked. "This is fixable." "That's precisely the concern. It must be reconstructed." "I'll reconstruct it myself then." One cadet whispered to another, "He's lucid. He's arguing. Is that normal for blood phase collapse?" Marcus sighed. "No one here's going into phase anything." Then he spotted a small, emergency first aid kit on the prep tray, standard issue, meant to stabilize patients before machines took over. To him, it looked like a perfectly fine solo kit. He reached over, popped the lid, and began sorting. Vrixor's voice jumped an octave. "Do not touch that." Marcus had already found what he needed. Alcohol-based surface cleanser, a curved needle, and a spool of polymer suture thread. "I'm trained for this," Marcus said. "You are not trained." "I passed the Boy Scout first aid course with a stitched-up pillow as my final exam." "Close enough. That cannot possibly be a legitimate certification." "Worked fine on Sarah when she split her leg open on a dock rail." "Who is Sarah?" "My friend. She's also human, still has the leg." Vrixer made a strangled noise and gestured frantically for someone to stop him. Marcus, undeterred, poured a healthy splash of disinfectant directly onto the wound. The medbay recoiled in horror. The pain bit hard, but Marcus kept his jaw tight. His eyes watered just enough to blur the tray in front of him. It wasn't pleasant, but it was routine. "He's chemically cauterizing," one assistant whispered. "No, he's just cleaning it," another replied, "but without numbing gel." "He is feeling all of that," Vrixer whispered. Marcus glanced up. "Yes, I am. It hurts. It's fine." The needle passed through the skin with a slow, smooth push. He kept the stitch even, spacing consistent. The polymer thread pulled through like fishing line. No catches, no skips. He tied the first knot. Then another. A third. Cadet EL turned away, pale. Another slumped into a stool, weakly muttering about pattern formation. He's doing it symmetrically," Trixel murmured. "He knows what he's doing." Vrixer couldn't look away. "But why would he do it to himself?" "Because you were going to knock me out and replace half my arm," Marcus said. "I'm just patching it." The AI chimed from its recessed console. Suturing technique identified. Adaptive field response protocol. Cross-reference. Extinct war species Kargathi. Type 3. The medbay went still. "No, that's not possible," Vrixer said. Match confirmed. Technique was considered exclusive to high-resilience combat species. Pattern unique to Class Sigma 9. Marcus tied off the last knot. "What? This?" He flexed his hand. The bleeding had stopped entirely. "I call that the keep working till shift ends stitch." No one laughed. The AI spoke again. "Update pending. Threat potential reclassified. Human resilience protocols exceed medical expectations. Observation recommended." Vrixer staggered back a step. You've redefined our protocol set." Marcus shrugged, rewrapping his forearm with a stretch bandage from the kit. "Glad I could help." "You must stay for scans," Vrixer said weakly. "I can stay for 15. Then I'm clocking back in." "You just performed trauma repair on yourself." "I once did it by flashlight in a boat during a thunderstorm," Marcus replied, standing up. This was relaxing by comparison. Trixel whispered, "He's not joking." Marcus looked down at his work and gave it a satisfied nod. "Honestly, cleaner than most ER visits back home." "Back where?" Vrixer asked. "Earth," Marcus said, already heading for the door. "Do you need a release form?" Trixel called. Marcus paused. "Do I need to sign anything?" "No, just please promise not to stitch us if we ever get hurt." "Deal." And with that, he walked out of the medbay. Behind him, a dozen alien cadets and one extremely concerned surgeon stared at the empty space he left behind. The AI quietly logged a change to internal station policies. Human medical response update. Blood volume thresholds revised. Sedation, optional. Regeneration, not automatic brain. Stitching by patient, not prohibited. Psychological monitoring. Medical staff only fighting. A printed poster appeared at the front of the trainee board within the hour. If a human patient arrives bleeding, remain calm, offer assistance, do not restrain, let them finish. And most importantly, do not faint. Vrixor sat heavily in his chair, rubbing at his temple. "Pressure, stitches," he muttered, "and reassurance, for us." Dr. Vrixor had lived through a quarantine breach, a failed stasis reanimation, and a compound decompression injury involving a species with pressurized bone marrow. None of those experiences prepared him for the moment a civilian stitched his own arm shut, stood up, and walked out of his med bay like he was leaving a haircut. The door had barely finished closing when the first request hit his console. "Incoming. Priority inquiry, Station Oversight Board." Then another. "Incoming. Cultural Compliance Branch, Human Affairs Subdivision, And a third. Alert. Surgical AI recommendation. Potential threat classification pending. He didn't even have time to sigh. The system had already diverted Marcus's medical file to higher clearance. The incident log was pulled into 2 separate investigations before the blood had fully dried on the exam table. Vrixor leaned back in his chair and watched the footage again. Marcus had moved with casual precision, not the artificial steadiness of a trained surgical drone, but the focused ease of someone who had done this before. Not once, not during a simulator drill, but repeatedly in real life and without support. The AI slowed the video at his request. Magnify the final knot, Vrixor said. The image zoomed, the last stitch locked in with a swift tug and 2 secure loops. There was a slight curl of the thread where he bit it off, and a clean alignment across the wound, no jagged tension, no mismatched entry angles. Vrixor blinked. He double-looped the anchor, he whispered, intuitively. The AI responded at once. Suture pattern consistent with tactical field medicine. Kargathi, type 3. He said it was Boy Scouts. Possible mistranslation. He was very clear. Behind him, the medbay was quieter than usual. Most of the cadets had dispersed, some voluntarily, others escorted by wellness officers. Cadet Trixel had stayed behind, sitting stiffly at a console, watching the AI perform a secondary analysis. Sir, she said, hesitant, if this is standard human behavior, we may need to re-evaluate their entire triage model. Vrixor rubbed his face. No sedation, no regeneration, no panic. And no hesitation, Trixel added. He didn't even flinch. Vrixor looked at her. Do you think it hurt? It must have, but he didn't act like it mattered. The AI offered a soft chime. New observation logged, it said. Human pain tolerance exceeds baseline projections. Self-repair capacity considered viable at field level. Psychological impact shifted from patient to observers. Vrixor exhaled slowly. We're the ones who need the sedatives. He stood, feeling his joints creak under the weight of the moment. Prepare for debrief. I suspect Command will want a very long explanation. They did. By mid-cycle, Dr. Vrixor found himself in a formal chamber reserved for internal threat assessments. 3 high-ranking station officials, 2 xenocultural liaisons, and a very quiet, very intense human ambassador sat in a semicircle facing him. At the center of the room, a hologram of Marcus Hale rotated slowly, his medical file projected in red. Ambassador Dawson cleared her throat. Let's begin. Vrixor sat upright. The patient arrived with a dermal laceration to the forearm, depth classified as mild to moderate. External blood loss appeared significant, but vitals were stable. He expressed no signs of distress and rejected standard emergency protocols. One of the security analysts interjected. And at what point did you initiate surgical override? I didn't, Vrixor said. He refused sedation, then proceeded to perform the procedure himself. Another official blinked. You allowed this? Vrixor gestured helplessly. We didn't so much allow it as we failed to stop him. He was faster than the auto-suture drone, Trixel added quietly. Dawson raised an eyebrow. I'm sorry, faster? Vrixor nodded. Not mechanically faster, just more decisive. His first stitch landed before the AI even finished its injection prep cycle. The security analyst frowned. That's impossible. Apparently not. The hologram shifted to a freeze frame of Marcus leaning forward, the needle halfway through his skin, eyes calm, expression focused. The room fell silent. Then Dawson said, Do we have any evidence this is military training? He denied it, Vrixor replied. Said it came from an organization called Boy Scouts. The xenocultural liaison tapped her notes. We've confirmed that. Pre-spaceflight human youth training program. Mostly fire safety, rope skills, and wilderness medicine. The analyst narrowed his eyes. And that results in battlefield stitching? Dawson smiled faintly. Humans do have a cultural emphasis on self-reliance. It's not unheard of for civilians to perform first aid under rough conditions. But this, she gestured toward the screen. This is more than rough. Vrixor looked at her. How common is this, really? Dawson hesitated. Common enough that I've seen worse on a camping trip. Trust me, if you think this is terrifying, You should see what humans do with duct tape and a broken ankle. The analyst looked ill. May I ask, the xenocultural liaison said carefully, why Mr. Hale's technique was flagged as adaptive war species? Vrixor tapped the table and brought up a secondary projection, an archived combat log from the Kargathi conflict. A similar stitch pattern appeared, grainy and fast, performed by a scaled soldier on another injured comrade. Pattern match exceeded 98%, he explained. The algorithm couldn't differentiate between them. The positioning, the knot angle, even the pacing, it all matched. He claimed it was instinct. It looked like muscle memory. The AI's voice spoke through the room's speakers. Reclassification pending. Human civilian field repair now recognized as a resilience-based threat mitigation behavior. Suggested medical policy update. Allow self-treatment if conditions are stable. The silence that followed lasted almost a full minute. Then Dawson nodded. I'll inform Earth Command. In the meantime, I recommend adjusting your protocols. Vrixor sighed. We already have. Across the station, every medbay display now included a small disclaimer under the human profile chart. Injury response. Human. Observe. Before intervening Danlang. Do not sedate without confirmation B. Bleeding may be normal. If patient requests tools, provide them friend. Offer emotional support to staff if needed. Back on Deck 9, Marcus was tightening the last housing bolt on a coolant junction when the comm buzzed in his ear. Maintenance Chief to Hale. He tapped the response. Go ahead. You're cleared for normal duty. No restrictions. Copy that. Also, the medbay submitted a recommendation. Apparently, you qualify as an unofficial first responder for human patients. Marcus grinned. Huh, didn't know I got certified. They also asked if you could teach a workshop. He paused. They want me to teach them how to sew up cuts? Among other things, one of the cadets asked if you'd explain what a Boy Scout is. Marcus tightened the bolt, stepped back, and dusted off his hands. Tell them I'll need fishing line, duct tape, and a banana. A banana? It's part of the demonstration, trust me. He turned back toward the corridor, passing a small repair drone that slowed and scanned his arm as he walked by. The AI voice chimed from the nearest overhead panel. Wound site, closed, healing, within expected range. Observational note, subject continues to function normally despite prior trauma. Station recommends caution when interpreting human injury severity. Marcus gave a little wave toward the ceiling. Appreciate the concern. The light blinked once in acknowledgement. Somewhere deep in the administrative levels, another request was being filed. Request. Add human resilience case study to medical training archives. Subject. Marcus Hale. Classification. Civilian. Threat level. Psychological. To medical staff. Meanwhile, on the medbay breakroom wall, someone had taped up a new internal memo. Human patients may attempt to resolve their injuries personally. If you feel faint, sit down. If you scream, mute your comm. If they ask for needle and thread, just hand it over. And in smaller print below that, under no circumstances should you ask what a camping trip is. You're not ready. It started with a checklist. Cadet Trixel arrived early the next cycle, bleary-eyed and still slightly traumatized, and found a stack of printed policy updates waiting on her station terminal. The top sheet was stamped with the bold black header. Human Emergency Treatment Revision 3. Her fingers trembled slightly as she read. For human patients, do not attempt regeneration without consent. Assess speech clarity before assuming delirium. Allow for manual self-treatment if patient is confident. If the human requests thread, provide it. Do not scream unless medically necessary. There was a new line at the bottom, handwritten in green marker. If he brings a banana, do not ask questions. She didn't even want to know what that meant yet. Across the room, Dr. Vrixor was adjusting the light filters over one of the surgical bays, not because they needed adjusting, but because movement helped him think. His tentacle-like digits moved slowly, deliberately, the posture of a surgeon trying to feel in control again. He hadn't slept, not really. A small human had rewritten 3 decades of procedural certainty in under 15 minutes. Cadet IL entered with an awkward pause at the doorway. Sir, she said softly, The simulation labs have requested your approval to add human suture modeling to the interspecies first aid module. Vrixor turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Did they specify which variant? Civilian model, based on Mr. Hale's technique. He nodded. Include hand tremor tolerances. That human didn't use bracing supports. They're calling it freehand field stitching, IL added. Vrixor sighed. Of course they are. The AI chimed in from overhead, unprompted. Note, new entries in medical forum trending under topic tag, human healing hysteria. I did not need to know that, Vrixor said aloud. He returned to his desk and pulled up the latest footage again. The system had already tagged every angle, slow-motioned each knot, and overlaid dozens of alien annotations. He tapped the comm. Send a message to Station Ops. I want to speak with Marcus Hale, in person. IL hesitated. Sir, are you sure? He's intimidating. Vrixor raised a brow. He stitched himself together without blinking. I don't think he's the one who should be intimidated. Marcus arrived 30 minutes later, escorted by a very nervous-looking junior logistics officer who kept darting glances at the bandage still wrapped around his arm. Marcus had left it mostly intact, no need to redress it, he figured. It was healing just fine. Vrixor met him outside the medbay entrance, hands folded, posture tight. I appreciate you agreeing to meet, he said. Marcus looked around. Did I break another rule? No, Vrixor said quickly. You broke several, but in doing so, you may have also corrected a few. Marcus scratched the back of his neck. Right. So, what's this about? Vrixor motioned toward the observation deck. If you'll walk with me? They moved through the upper level, past labs filled with diagnostic equipment and prototype regen chambers. Marcus caught glimpses of open terminals diagrams, videos, side-by-side comparisons of suture patterns. Some of them were his. So I've become a training module now? He asked. Yes, Vrixor said without hesitation. 2, actually, one for the suturing, another for staff stress management. Marcus barked a laugh. That bad? We lost 3 cadets to early rotation withdrawal and 1 to a nervous breakdown after attempting to mimic your stitching technique with live tissue. Marcus winced. Yeah, okay, don't do that. I didn't authorize it. Still, tell them to practice on oranges. Or bananas. Vrixor gave him a sidelong glance. Why the fruit? Soft skin, good resistance, close enough to teach control. I see, he paused. Would you consider teaching this formally? Marcus blinked. You want me to teach alien med students how to sew themselves shut? Or others? He let out a breath. Look, I'm not a doctor. Neither, apparently, was the extinct species whose methods you precisely replicated. Marcus frowned. Still don't get how my stitches look like a war species thing. Vrixor gestured toward a projection. The hologram flared to life footage of an old battlefield record, alien combatants working in pairs. One of them sat bleeding, calm, while the other performed fast, practiced stitches under fire. Field healing under pressure, Vrixor said. Your work mimics it nearly exactly, down to the stitch angle and tension. Marcus squinted. Is that dental floss? It is. He snorted. Okay, they were like us. Vrixor hesitated. There is concern. Because I'm not supposed to know this stuff? Because we believe no species should know this without training, you suggest otherwise. I suggest you're underestimating how often humans get hurt doing dumb things far from hospitals. They walked in silence a moment longer. Finally, Vrixor asked, Why did you do it? You could have let us treat you. Marcus thought about it. I didn't trust your tools, he said finally. Or, more accurately, I didn't think you understood the problem. We scanned it. And your scanner said I was dying. Yes. But I wasn't, Marcus said. I was leaking, not failing. Vrixor tilted his head. There's a difference? A huge one. They stopped by a viewport overlooking the docking bay. Marcus leaned against the rail, looking down at the small ships sliding in and out of the hangars. When I was a kid, he said, my dad caught a hook through his thumb, deep, could have gone to the ER. But we were out in the woods, 30 miles from anything. So he poured whiskey on it, pulled it out, and had me thread the needle while he held the flashlight. Told me to get it right or we're doing it again. Vrixer's fronds drooped in shock. He let a child operate on him? He coached me through it, Marcus said. We didn't even have gloves, but it worked. He kept the thumb. You could have introduced infection, nerve damage, but we didn't, Marcus said, because we were careful, and because sometimes, if you wait for the perfect conditions, you bleed out first. Vrixor didn't respond. He just watched the ships. You know what surprised me? Marcus asked. That none of your cadets had ever seen a wound bleed like that. Don't you get cuts? Not often, and never without subdermal coagulants in place. Ah, that's the problem. Vrixor looked at him. You think bleeding is good? I think bleeding is normal, Marcus said. It's not a failure, it's a signal. Behind them, the AI interrupted quietly. New insight logged. Human perception of injury includes contextual thresholds far beyond standard medical alerts. Marcus turned. Translation? They ignore things that would panic most species, Vrixor translated. That's not wrong, Marcus said. You should see us during flu season. Vrixor's shoulders sagged slightly. I don't think I'm ready for that. Marcus clapped him gently on the back. You'll adjust. He began to walk away. Vrixor called after him. One last thing. Marcus stopped. The AI flagged your suturing style again, not just as adaptive, as classified. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You mean it thinks I'm military? No worse. Vrixor hesitated. It thinks you're a myth. That made Marcus laugh out loud. A what? A myth. A fabricated example of extreme survival behavior. Station records had no confirmed instance of a civilian performing structured tissue repair solo, unaided, with no support systems. Guess I'm real after all. Vrixor smiled faintly. So it would seem. Marcus gave him a nod and walked off, leaving the surgeon standing in the quiet corridor with a clipboard of rewritten protocols and the uncomfortable feeling that he had just met the beginning of a whole new medical philosophy. That evening, Trixel updated the wall poster outside medbay. Below the list of human treatment steps, she added a new one in bold blue ink. If the human offers to help you stitch yourself, say no. And in smaller print below it, unless you want a scar and a story to go with it. The human was back. Not bleeding this time, just carrying a crate full of multi-tool calibration coils and a half-empty thermos of something that smelled like scorched cinnamon. Marcus Hale set the crate down on the supply counter and gave the room a once-over. The medbay looked cleaner than usual, though a little too organized. Everything labeled, every chair perfectly aligned. The usual subtle chaos of medical work had been scrubbed away, replaced with the overcompensation of a staff trying very hard to look calm. He could feel eyes on him. From behind the diagnostic console, Cadet Trixel peeked out, clearly trying to look casual. A few others busied themselves with non-existent tasks, while one pretended to reformat a perfectly functional scanner for the third time in a row. Marcus sighed and held up his bandaged arm. Still attached, still functional, no blood fountains today. A few nervous laughs floated up, mostly from the cadets. Dr. Vrixor, standing near the far surgical station, gave a small, polite nod. Thank you for the update, he said with exaggerated composure. Marcus walked over and handed him a folded slip of paper. Maintenance cleared your exam table vibration issue. Was just a harmonic resonance feedback from the floor anchor. Vrixor unfolded the slip, nodded again, and paused as if unsure whether to speak further. You're all acting like I'm here to pull my own spleen out, Marcus said. Trixel stepped out from behind the console, holding a tablet awkwardly. Sir, if I may, we've had 10 human patients since your visit. Oh? None of them required stitching, but 2 requested it anyway. One even brought her own kit. Marcus laughed. Let me guess, leather case, monogrammed initials, heavy-duty needle? Yes. That's Madeline Trask. She used to be a wilderness medic for storm chasers. You should have seen the time she splinted a broken ankle with 2 forks and half a tent pole. Trixel blinked. That's not comforting. She was fine. Climbed a bluff the next day. Vrixor cleared his throat, setting the tablet aside. We've adapted. Marcus turned. To human injuries? To human expectations. He tapped a panel on the wall. A display lit up, showing a new set of diagrams, human anatomy overlays, pain response scaling charts, and a highlighted icon reading Manual Repair Clearance, Conditional. We've integrated a patient-directed care module for humans, Vrixer said. It allows for field-approved procedures to be performed under supervision. Marcus grinned. You're letting us stitch ourselves now? We're not stopping you, if you're qualified. We also adjusted the AI's triage system. It no longer treats moderate bleeding as terminal collapse. Good call. But, Vrixer added, we also added psychological preparation for staff, especially regarding your species' relationship with discomfort. Marcus crossed his arms. We're not masochists. We just don't panic when things hurt. Trixel held up her datapad again. Would you mind reviewing this? She handed it to him. The screen displayed a training slide titled Human Trauma Response, Emotional Detachment, or Practical Prioritization. The first bullet point read, Patient may remain sarcastic, combative, or unconcerned. This is not necessarily a sign of shock. He chuckled. Now you're getting it. We had to change the AI's definition of calm, Trixel added. It used to flag humans as possibly dissociative if they didn't cry during treatment. That's fair. We usually cry after. Dr. Vrixer watched him for a long moment. There's one more matter, he said finally. Marcus set down his thermos. Let me guess. The AI still thinks I'm military. Not anymore. That got his attention. Vrixor continued, We submitted an override request. The station's cultural liaisons agreed that your actions, while extreme, fit within the spectrum of civilian human resilience. The war species tag has been removed. Marcus let out a breath. Well, that's good. I was getting worried someone was going to try to recruit me. Vrixor's tone softened slightly. It was never a question of your background. It was about our assumptions. Marcus tilted his head. So now you assume we're all unlicensed surgeons with a high pain threshold? We assume you're capable of more than we expected, which means we must be better prepared. There was a pause. Then the AI spoke up again, its tone less robotic than usual, almost embarrassed. Apologies for previous misclassification. You are not a threat. You are simply human. Marcus gave the ceiling a thumbs up. Vrixor smiled faintly and handed him a small box, a token of appreciation. Inside was a custom-sealed human emergency kit, fabricated in the med bay. It held thread, a curved needle, sterile wipes, gloves, and a small card that read, If you must do this yourself, please inform us first so we don't pass out. Marcus chuckled and closed the lid. You know, this might be the nicest thing anyone's given me on this station. Not everyone agreed with the policy updates, Vrixor admitted. But no one wants to be the one who tries to sedate a human again. The last incident involved a broken chair and a 7-minute philosophical debate about autonomy. I bet it did. Marcus gave the room one last look. The nervous energy had eased. Cadets were smiling now, not flinching. Someone even waved. He turned back to Vrixor. You're good doctors. You just needed a weird patient. We got one, Vrixor said. They shook hands. A quiet, mutual understanding settled between them. Marcus picked up his thermos, nodded to the staff, and walked out the door. In his wake, the medbay remained still for a moment. Then the AI resumed its routine. Alert cleared, emotional baseline stable, no immediate threats, human departure logged, medical doctrine updated. Somewhere down the corridor, Marcus heard the familiar buzz of a crew alert ping. He tapped his comm. Hail here. The voice on the other end was engineering dispatch. We've got a problem with the lift rails in the utility shaft. Can you take a look? He smiled. Sure thing. Just let me grab my first aid kit. You never know when someone might need stitching. On the wall of the medbay, just beneath the printed protocols, someone had added one final line in pen. Human patients require pressure, stitches, and reassurance. That will be okay.